Welcome to Michael Potts F1, everything Formula One, but from a photographer's point of view. As the season sets on the 2022 campaign, the first one in this new set of regulations, it's time to look back over the course of the year and see which teams have performed and which ones haven't. While the drivers enjoy their winter break, we'll be scouring through my photographic archives, looking for interesting photographs taken throughout the year. Today we're going to be looking at the Alfa Romeo team, and this isn't just an excuse for me to show you the photographs of the massive Silverstone crash again. There's actually a lot more to Alfa Romeo's season. 2022 has been a bit of a revival year for the Swiss-based team. Ninth last year, they've managed to climb their way up to 6th place in the championship, and with that, bragging rights over the lower midfield. They got 6th place by the skinniest of margins. They were tied on 55 points with Aston Martin, and they only claim the higher place by having the best result of the two teams. On paper, it looks like they've achieved incredibly well, but there's actually a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of peculiarities that, if they had managed to get things better, they could have actually scored a lot more points. So let's dive into those and see where they could have improved. The team started the year with a completely new driver lineup, the only team to do so. Out were Ferrari grandee Kimi Räikkönen and Ferrari Academy driver Antonio Giovinazzi. In came Mercedes outcast Valtteri Bottas and rookie Zhou Guanyu. And this change signifies the start of a realignment, a move away from Maranello. They arrived in Barcelona testing with a camouflaged car. The idea of that was to hide some of their aerodynamic concepts from their rivals. And when I first saw it, I thought, why have they bothered? Because the car didn't look that quick. But I was wrong. In the first race in Bahrain, Bottas managed to get a 6th place, and Zhou finished 10th, which gave the rookie points on debut, which is a big thing. The season started beautifully, and by round 9 in Canada, Bottas had scored 46 points. On the other side of the garage, Zhou had only scored 6. And this is where you see the season starting to fragment. Not only is there a big discrepancy between the two sides of the garage, but also from both halves of the season. While the first 9 rounds were incredibly rewarding, the team only managed to score 4 points in the remaining 13. So what happened? What went wrong? You can forgive Zhou for being a little off the pace at the start of the year because it is his rookie season, and taking that step up from Formula 2 to Formula 1 is a massive learning curve. You do see him closing the gap to Bottas as the season progresses. Unfortunately, that's when the car becomes uncompetitive to its rivals. So what happened? What caused this massive mid-season drop-off? What caused Bottas not to score a single point for 10 races? As always, the answer is quite complex, and there's a combination of reasons that caused this. They were all struggling to get through race weekends unscathed. I started losing track about how many times I would see an Alfa Romeo in a gravel track during practice. Then this started happening more and more during the races. Whatever the reason, if it was mechanical or driver error, Alfa Romeo had 12 retirements during the course of the season. To put that in context, there were 4 drivers who retired more than anyone else. That was Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, and both Alfa Romeo drivers, Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas. The driver who retired the least in 2022 was George Russell. He only retired once, and that was at the British Grand Prix, where he got out of his car to go and see if Zhou Guanyu was okay after his horrific crash. And in doing so, he got disqualified from the race. Alfa Romeo appeared to stand still on the development race. All of their other rivals, Haas, Williams, AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, all managed to score points in the second half of the year, which generally go unanswered. Alfa Romeo are only able to score on 3 occasions after Canada. So it's not only a story of 2 halves of the garage, but it's a story of 2 halves of the season. Head-to-head, Valtteri Bottas versus Zhou Guanyu. Bottas dominated the inter-team battle. He was quicker in qualifying and he scored more points. Many more points. It was one of the more extreme differences between teammates. However, this hides the improvements Zhou made during the course of the year. And it's unfortunate that this coincides with the team's slump. You would expect to have seen a bigger gap between the 2 drivers at the start of the season. Bottas is a multiple race winner and a former title contender, and Zhou is making his first season in the category. How they both do next year will be interesting to see. The highlight for the team would have been round 1, where both cars scored points. Or maybe it would have been the final race of the season, where despite a double points finish, Aston Martin weren't able to take 6th place away from Alfa Romeo. The worst moment of the season would have been watching Zhou's horrific crash. And actually, watching him walk around the paddock after that was by far the best thing that happened to the team the whole year. It's hard to judge Zhou's rookie season, as he was the only driver to make the step up to F1 from F2. We can compare him to drivers who've taken the step up since 2020, Latifi, Schumacher, Mazepin and Tsunoda. And really, all of those have struggled, with Tsunoda being the only one still with a drive. Zhou scored points on his debut, which is no small matter. He clocked a fastest lap in Japan, and he managed to come back from that horrific, terrifying crash in Silverstone, which would have shaken any driver. The team has renewed his contract for next year, and now he has a chance to build on his solid start and shows that he belongs in Formula 1. Zhou has added a bit of colour to the paddock this year. On Thursdays, he's often seen wearing some pretty cool outfits. The first photograph comes from the opening race in Bahrain. This was taken around turn 12 and is shot at a 30th of a second. I've tried to add elements from the track into the shot. The Ferris wheel, the palm trees covered in fairy lights. With long exposure photography, you're trying to create something that the eye doesn't see in real life. And night races give you a chance to incorporate many additional elements into making that shot magical. This was a good race for Zhou. And yes, he did luck into 10th place when Perez's car failed on the final lap, but that doesn't take anything away from his achievement. Keeping in theme, the second shot is another slow shutter night shot, taken in qualifying at the Singapore Grand Prix. Here the lights of the Singapore Flyer streak across the sky, making a rather lovely semicircle. Singapore wasn't a great race for Zhou, as he was shepherded into the barriers by Latifi. Botas moved to Alfa Romeo from Mercedes at the start of the year, and it didn't look like a great move. To be fair, he didn't have many options, but going from the best team to the 9th place team, it must have been a bit of a come down. He didn't appear to let that get him down, and he came out of the first race fighting. In qualifying, he got his Alfa ahead of George Russell, who was driving, effectively, his old Mercedes. That must have been really satisfying. The first half of the year was really good, and Bottas scored regularly, and well. He looked happy, he launched merchandise, he supported his favourite ice hockey team, and he was cycling a lot with his girlfriend Tiffany, even taking him for a ride in a Harley Davidson in Austin. It's a huge contrast to how he was towards the end of his time at Mercedes, and it's great to see him enjoying life again. That's not to say that there weren't issues. He had mechanical ones in Jeddah, Silverstone, Hungary and Zandvoort, and he had crashes in Belgium and Austin. He even managed a few crashes and spins in the practice sessions, such as in Imola and Miami. The first shot I'd like to share with you is this image of Bottas from the Hungarian Grand Prix. Here he is using the blue marked full wet tyre. They're heavily grooved and they displace a lot of water, and you can see the water being shot directly up into the air. This highlights a bit of a problem with the current F1 car designs. They're creating too much spray when they're driving through standing water, and that has disrupted several of the races. There's a plan to combat this with potential spray guards. Think bicycle mud guards for Formula 1 cars, and we might see this introduced midway through next year. The second shot is taken in Austin at sunset during Friday practice. The session was extended and we got to see the cars driving this glorious golden light. The circuit is bathed in sunlight, and it's quite magical when combined with a racing car. Hopefully there'll be more late running practice sessions next year. Alfa Romeo Sauber made a huge step up in 2022. You have to go back 10 years to the last time they were placed this highly in the championship. There's a lot going on in the background of this team. Fred Vasseur, the team principal, will be leaving at the end of the year to take over Ferrari's team principal role. Audi have confirmed that they'll be taking over the team as a full works team in 2026. They've already started laying the groundwork for this. They've just hired former McLaren team principal Andreas Seidel as CEO. He's worked for Porsche in the past, so he knows the VW group intimately. For next year, the team will continue to run Ferrari engines and be branded Alfa Romeo. But what's going to happen in 2024 and 2025 is less certain. As to what the team will be called and what engines they'll run, that's a bit up in the air. The Audi takeover and entry into Formula 1 looks like it could be quite successful. They've given themselves the goal of competing for the championship in 3 years. And that's a very ambitious target, but they have given themselves a number of years to prepare for it. There's quite a few years to be able to get their engine operation online and up and running, as well as expand the factory in Switzerland to become a real championship contending team. Audi have been incredibly successful in other motorsport categories. They've won the World Endurance Championship as well as the World Rally Championship in the past. In terms of drivers, both have been confirmed for 2023. If Zhou can establish himself as a viable option in Formula 1, it'll be a great asset to Audi going forward, because China is Audi's largest market. By 2026, you'd assume that Bottas probably would have retired. And there is talk that Audi would like to have a German driver in the other seat. But looking around, I can't see any options that would be realistic at this stage. Thank you for watching my deep dive into Alfa Romeo's season. I hope you've enjoyed it. What do you think of the team's achievements this year? Do you think they'll be able to hold on to 6th place next year, or maybe even go one better and get 5th? And how do you see them being able to balance that move to Audi, as well as being able to maintain a competitive race team? Please do let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you'd like any photographs of Alfa Romeo, there's a link in the description below. I've also included a 10% discount code, which will hopefully make any purchase just a little bit sweeter. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, goodbye.